This special show on NewsX, Samudar Pratap Singh. This decade has marked the rise of Indian space startups, from making indigenous semi-cryogenic engines to private satellite constellation launches. India has certainly witnessed several milestones. And today we have with us a space tech startup which is aiming to revolutionize maritime surveillance. Yes, 70% of the Earth, which is covered by oceans, is all ocean, and due to lack of real-time monitoring, it's also vulnerable to a lot of illegal activities. Now, we witnessed one of India's worst terror attacks in 26/11, where terrorists infiltrated via a sea route. The recent oil spill off the Kochi coast also calls for the need of a persistent maritime monitoring system. Today, we have with us two such gentlemen. They represent a space tech company, Piersight, who are looking to solve this problem. Joining us on the broadcast are Gorovs, who is a former ISRO scientist, and Vineet Bansal, a former scientist at National Instruments. Gaurav is the co-founder and CEO of Piersight Space, who graduated from the Indian Institute of Space Science, then worked with ISRO for 9 years and played a critical role in the design and execution of various interplanetary and Earth observation missions. Along with him is Vineet Bansal. He's also live with us, the CTO and co-founder of Piersight Space. He's a graduate in electronics from BITS Pilani and has also spent 9 years at National Instruments building, test and prototyping solutions for space as well as the defense industry. Gaurav and Vineet, welcome both of you. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Uday.
Thank you for having us.
Let me begin with you first, Gaurav. What was the idea? Let's talk about that first. What was the idea and vision behind Piersight?
Yeah. So the main vision was to bring all form of surveillance to a control room. Currently, as you correctly said, that 70% of Earth, which is waters, is not well monitored, and bad actors take advantage of it. Right. So in order to constantly survey and look after all parts of the oceans, it's necessary to have a surveillance system. And that was the point here, to make a lower Earth orbiting satellite constellation, which can rapidly revisit, various parts of the ocean. And our system, or the satellite in space, has this camera called synthetic aperture radar, which can see through clouds and emit during the night time. So this ensures all-weather day and night surveillance.
Okay. Now, your goal, of course, Vineet, as I said in your introduction, is to create this solution which will provide persistent maritime monitoring. Now, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by persistent maritime monitoring? How is it different from current surveillance systems?
Yeah. So when we say persistent maritime surveillance, we mean basically small satellites which are constantly looking into world's oceans and tracking every vessel and every iceberg on this Earth, such that we have dynamic maps of all human and industrial activity at sea. Right. Now, how they're different from existing satellites. Now, like India and many other countries have synthetic aperture radar satellites up in the sky, but those are meant for targeted imaging. What do I mean by targeted imaging? They basically look at a very small area in the ocean or on the land and give a very high resolution image of that. But what we are looking at is monitoring vast oceans, which requires a complete shift in how these satellites are built. And hence Piersight was born, where we are building these small satellites which are meant for surveying huge amount of sea and ocean areas, up to 2 million square kilometers by a single satellite in a single day, such that with very few satellites, we will have very good or very quick revisit of every part of world's oceans.
Okay. Can you help demonstrate that then, Gaurav? Say from point A to point Z, how would your constellation provide real-time data, till the point of analysis for further application?
Yeah. So let's say, there's any point in the ocean, we have about 32 satellites in our constellation. So one or the other satellite will be able to revisit that point, be it a critical infrastructure in the sea, be it a port, or be it major shipping lanes, with revisit times up to 30 minutes. And our satellites, as Vineet was explaining, have all-weather imaging eyes as well as ears. So when we say ears, I want to introduce you to the technology called AIS. So AIS is a technology which is mandatory for all ships to have. What that means is that the ships need to broadcast their live locations constantly, and these live locations are received on the ears in the satellite, right? And we co-locate this AIS information along with the imagery information. And the moment we see someone has turned off their AIS, we can still have a visual signature for them. And that is when we know that there is a high potential that this particular vessel is going ahead for some illegal activity, or there is some mishap which has happened in the middle of the oceans. And then we will be able to, give that information to authorities in real time to take action on it.
Yes. Okay. Let me just quickly also congratulate you both for your seed funding that has come about. Quickly, Vineet, how does that feel?
I mean, so we basically, this is an extension to our seed round, and we have till now raised about $8 million in our seed capital to build our satellites and launch them into space. The best feeling about, or the best part about this particular round is this capital is coming from very, very strategic investors who are basically eventually our customers, right? So this demonstrates how our customers are eagerly looking forward to such technology in future to make our oceans more sustainable. So the biggest, contributors to this round were Sustainable Oceans Alliance, an organization basically running with various ocean startups to help make our oceans more sustainable, as well as from Crescent Ventures, who own basically multiple ports across the Middle East. So these two are going to be our eventual customers, and both of them have contributed in this round. So it's a very good feeling, I must say.
Yes, Gaurav, congratulations to you as well on that seed funding. How does that feel? Also, I have to ask you, because you've already launched Varuna on board the PSLV. Can you give us a rough idea as to what stage you've reached so far in your mission to put this constellation in space?
Yeah. So SAR is one of the most complicated, technologies in space sciences. And last year we did the Varuna Technology Demonstration Program, where we, launched a prototype of our SAR payload on PSLV Orbital Experimentation Module, or POEM. And along with that, a twin of the same payload was put up on a drone. So the objective here was that the POEM mission, it de-risked our ability to make electronics and function those electronics in space, while the drone-based experiment proved our capability of signal processing and SAR imaging capabilities. So with both of them, we were able to, de-risk our technology. The fact that, we've come up with a very unique and state-of-the-art architecture for wide area search and surveillance of the oceans was de-risked by both of these programs. And now we are launching our first commercial satellite in middle of next year. And currently we are under development for the same.
Okay, but when will it be operationalized, Vineet? When do you plan on making this constellation of satellites operational in space?
Yeah, as Gaurav mentioned, we're launching our first commercial one mid of next year.
Okay.
Post that, we will proliferate our constellation such that the full constellation is up by 2030 or 31. Right. And this proliferation will also be based on where the customers are. Like we're working with Indian Coast Guard and several other Indian government agencies. While we're working with them, we will proliferate such that the first few satellites are launched around India as well as a few other customers.
Okay. Now, look, just looking at all of this, yes. You wanted to say something? You complete?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, we're slowly increasing from 1, then there'll be 3 satellites, then there'll be 6, and then 8,
right.
And such that we build the full constellation of 32.
Okay, you're doing that, of course, in a phase-by-phase manner, as you're saying. Now, Gaurav, just looking at things now from a macro perspective, how do you see ISRO and InSpace's progress with respect to space and space tech startups? We're trying to, ace these SSLV launches while also working on private launches as well. Has their mentorship worked in any way? Has it helped as well?
Yeah, I mean, last year we were able to launch something in a record time. For example, from the time of getting our first funding to finishing the complete satellite testing, it took us about 6 to 7 months. So which is unprecedented, and a good part of this credit also goes to InSpace and ISRO. Because initially when somebody starts a company and tries to build something like that, it takes a good amount of time and money for you to set up the infrastructure. We were lucky as an Indian startup to get all of these facilities directly from InSpace and ISRO. So, for example, we uh, tested the complete satellite and integrated it in a clean room provided by InSpace Technical Center. And those facilities were ready for us to use. Yeah. So, and apart from that, at various stages, even the entire process of getting a slot on the PSLV orbital experimentation module in space really held our hand and held us through that entire way with the announcement of opportunity till the selection and ultimately giving us authorization for the launch.
Okay.
So
Now,
yes, yeah.
yeah, so their hand holding has certainly helped, as you're saying, and their
Yeah.
mentorship
Yeah.
as well. Now, coming back to what we mentioned at the start on your particular solution and its applicability. Now, Gaurav, we saw that recent horrible oil spill off the Kerala coast, where a Liberian vessel had sank. How can Piersight's real-time monitoring improve response in such situations?
Right. So oil spills are very easily and characterized and detected using synthetic aperture radars. That's because of how a microwave interacts with the oceans, and you can easily detect and demarcate the oil spills. And as we are telling with our constellation, we can have revisit times of 230 minutes. And if these oil spills are detected in time, you can inform the authorities, and then you can also know how the trajectory of that oil spill will change over the next few days with addition to few other physics-based models. And with this kind of a monitoring, we can act in right time in order to prevent further losses which happen after that oil spill.
Yes. Also piracy and trafficking, Vineet, that's another major global issue. Can your monitoring system help in anticipating these kind of attacks as well a bit better?
Absolutely. If you heard about the Red Sea issues where Houthis were attacking merchant vessels, as well as the Somalian pirate issues in the past. So our technology will be able to detect not only pirate ships, but also be able to immediately downlink that information or send that information to the merchant vessel to be careful about such incidents happening in, let's say, 100 nautical mile area of their vessel, such that they can be more careful. So our technology not only detects but also relays this message immediately to the merchant vessel to be careful.
Another concern, Vineet, is Chinese deep sea surveillance. That's a global concern. In fact, not just one just pertaining to this Indo-Pacific region. Can your systems detect deep sea objects too?
Our satellites are meant for global monitoring, so we can track every vessel and every iceberg on this earth globally, whether it's in deep sea or whether it's in exclusive economic zone of a country. We will be able to detect and relay the message that there's a vessel which is supposed to be a research vessel or a naval vessel or a merchant vessel and is at this lat long for so many hours and is surveying these waters. So all this information can be real-time downlinked to the ground station for authorities to know globally.
Okay, coming back now to your personal journeys. Gaurav, let's just talk about that. Tell us a bit about your journey. I mentioned very briefly in your introduction, of course, for our viewers, but I'm sure they want to know more. What got you interested in space? Who's your role model? Tell us a bit about your journey so far.
Yeah, so I was born and brought up in Ahmedabad, and as you said in the introduction, then joined Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology. Major motivation for that was the success of Chandrayaan-1 mission. I had attended a public lecture after India detecting water on the moon on that mission, and that gave me a feeling that this is the area where I want to work on, leading me to join IST. And then right after IST, I joined as a scientist at Space Application Center, where I was working as a systems engineer for various synthetic aperture radar missions. Again, I was lucky that Chandrayaan 2 had a synthetic aperture radar, and I got to work in that team for a significant part of my career and launch that particular mission to the moon as well. So yeah, that was my journey. Mainly worked on synthetic aperture radar technology for about 9 years, and then when India opened up the space sector for private companies, I and Vineet got together, got this idea of seeing the white space of monitoring open oceans. and started Piersight. Yeah.
Who's been your role model?
My role model definitely is Dr. Vikram Sarabhai.
Okay. Vineet, let me,
Also comes from my city.
Okay, so he's from your city and of course he's from your sector as well. Vineet, what about you? Tell us a bit about your journey, how you gotten to, decided to take up space. Who's been your inspiration?
So I mean, since my childhood days, I used to read a lot about space. I mean, in school library in encyclopedia, and I was just reading one day that a spacecraft runs at 28,000 kilometers per hour in the library encyclopedia, and I was amazed to see that the objects run at such high speed in space. And few days later, Columbia was about to land on Earth with Kalpana Chawla, and I was monitoring that, or I was rather viewing that live on TV. And in front of my eyes, Columbia led to a failure, and then I was heartbroken. And incidentally, Kalpana Chawla also comes from the same city where I come from. I mean, she did her graduation from Chandigarh, and I'm born and raised in Chandigarh. So my role model is Kalpana Chawla, and by looking at that incident, I always wanted to do something in space. Right? It always fascinated me. So post my graduation, when I joined NI, they gave me an option to work closely with space customers across India. And I jumped onto that opportunity that, yes, I want to work on space, and eventually started building solutions for Indian Space Research Organization, as well as some of the space programs of Ministry of Defense, and started working on them through NI. And that's how I met Gaurav as well, and then started Piersight along with Gaurav.
Okay. You're mentioning defense, Vineet, and you worked on defense research projects as well in the past. Do you think that Piersight then can help government improve holistic maritime surveillance? Is that something that our government can also use, other countries' governments also?
Definitely, this technology can be used by Indian government, and as I mentioned, we are working closely with Indian Coast Guard in solving challenges like oil spills and monitoring India's exclusive economic zones. Right? So definitely, this tech can help improve situational awareness of waters around India and several other governments. Yeah, so the answer is yes, we can help improve that.
Yes. How bullish are you, Gaurav, about the space sector currently? These progresses made by us so far. As you said, obviously, it's when we opened up this sector to private players is when you decided to enter it. How bullish are you about this sector going ahead?
No, I'm very bullish, particularly because space sector can really help solve problems on Earth. And for this to be really mainstreamed, we need to bring these solutions at the right unit economic cost. And I think India and building in India with the kind of talent and the kind of ecosystem ISRO has created, we are at the perfect spot right now. And with the right support from space and the government, I see India as rising one of the major giants in the private space sector as well.
Yes. Do you believe that that this current government, Vineet, has helped this sector in terms of their focus on it, their support, and also steps like opening it up?
Absolutely. As Gaurav mentioned earlier, we're fortunate that the space was liberalized in India, and people like me and Gaurav can now start private space companies and launch a bunch of satellites into space to improve situational awareness. Right? Moreover, there has been a constant push by InSpace to promote Indian startups and make their authorization process very, very simple. Right? Today, there are multiple programs by InSpace, such as Earth Observation Program in public-private partnership, where about 12 to 14 satellites are being manufactured by players like us to improve situational awareness as well as give boost to India's space economy. Then a satellite bus as a service program. There's a technology adoption fund program also being announced by InSpace. So I definitely believe Government of India is supporting space startups, and I think we are getting a lot of push to improve our contribution to global space economy.
And huge strides being made as well by private players, isn't it? You're working on this innovative solution, Gaurav. We've also seen how others, are helping private satellite launches to making, indigenous semi-cryogenic engines as well. A lot of strides being made by, those in this sector, isn't it?
True. Yeah. I mean, in the last 2 to 3 years, Indian's private space sector has really grown. And right now, I think it's at an inflection point, and we'll see an exponential growth from here on.
Yes. As far as ISRO also is concerned, how have steps taken, missions rather taken by them, like Chandrayaan, the ambitious Gaganyaan as well, really changed the game for us globally, Gaurav?
Yeah. So, I mean, as the private sector, takes the baton towards proliferation and operationalization of constellations, ISRO can now focus on, more dedicated programs like the Gaganyaan,
Yeah.
Chandrayaan, Aditya L1, and most of these scientific missions. And this is a model how, we saw it in US as well. NASA handing over a lot of stuff to the private sector and then concentrating on deep science and planetary missions. And I'm seeing a similar thing happen here in India as well.
Have you also seen that change, Vineet? I'm sure you interact with those abroad, in the same industry. Have you seen the outlook, globally on India change as far as our space program is concerned?
Absolutely. We started our journey from a Techstars space program, which was in Los Angeles. And whenever both me and Gaurav mentioned that we worked in some capacity with ISRO, Gaurav was a scientist at ISRO, I was building solutions along with ISRO, right? So there was a very, very high, I think, repute which ISRO carries as a brand name globally, right? So that ISRO brand name was working really, really well for us as well. And globally, people were following Chandrayaan 3 mission, the landing of the rover on moon. Globally, people were monitoring, and when we were there just after that landing, I think globally people were celebrating that success. So I think yes, ISRO has put India on a global pedestal for space tech, and it is being celebrated globally.
Okay, I have to also quickly ask you about the name Piersight. How did you come up with it? Who coined it? Either of you can take that.
Gaurav, you want to take that?
Yeah, so Pier is a renowned structure on the ports,
Yeah.
which has a unique vantage point of the oceans, and that's how we came up with Piersight. And also there was a small word play that SAR signal can pierce through clouds. So the both of them adding towards Piersight.
Yeah, and yes, and you can make out from your name itself that obviously you're based on maritime surveillance. Your speciality, specialization is that. All right. Well, good luck to you both. Thank you very much for joining us, Gaurav and Vineet, and of course, all the very best for your goal ahead and your company as well. Thank you for being with us on NewsX. Let's slip into a short break on that note. Much more coming up on the other side.